Welcome to the Sleep Time History channel. Here we create immersive first-person stories from the pages of history, told gently through the eyes of those who lived them. Each episode invites you to step into moments of the past. Walk quietly beside emperors, explorers, revolutionaries, and forgotten heroes, not as distant names, but as real people experiencing history firsthand. Our aim is simple: to help you relax, transport you somewhere peaceful, and guide you gently into sleep. If you've enjoyed this experience, please consider liking and subscribing. It genuinely helps our channel grow, enabling us to create more soothing content for you. And if you'd like to leave a comment, we'd love to hear which historical figures or moments you'd like us to cover next. Your ideas inspire future episodes. Thank you for joining us. Now, relax and let history carry you softly towards sleep. Welcome to a journey back in time, to the year 1067, where stone walls rise against the English countryside and life moves to rhythms established centuries ago. Tonight, we'll walk alongside the forgotten servants of Thornfield Castle, experiencing their world through their eyes. Let their daily struggles and simple satisfactions carry you gently into peaceful sleep, as we discover together what it truly meant to live and work in the shadow of medieval towers. The first light of dawn breaks slowly over the stone walls of Thornfield Castle, casting long shadows across the courtyard below. It is the year 1067, just after the Norman conquest has reshaped England forever. Within these thick walls, a complex world exists, one where dozens of servants begin each day before the sun fully rises, their lives intertwined with the rhythms of castle life that have remained unchanged for generations. In the early medieval period, castles were not merely fortifications, but entire communities, small worlds unto themselves, where hundreds of people lived, worked, and died within the protective embrace of stone walls. The servants who inhabited these spaces formed the backbone of medieval society, their daily labour ensuring that the noble families could maintain their power and prestige. As the bells of the castle chapel ring out the hour of prime, signalling the beginning of the monastic day, our story begins with Aldrich, a young man of perhaps 20 summers who serves as a groom in the castle stables. His calloused hands already know the weight of responsibility, for he has been tending to the Lord's horses since he was barely tall enough to reach their bridles. The air is crisp with the promise of autumn, and Aldrich pulls his rough woolen cloak tighter around his shoulders as he makes his way across the cobbled courtyard. The stones beneath his feet are slick with morning dew, and his breath forms small clouds in the cool air. This is the world he has known since childhood, a world where every stone tells a story, and every shadow holds the memory of countless servants who walked these same paths before him. The castle hierarchy is as rigid as the stone walls that surround them all. At the very top sits Lord Geoffrey de Montfort, a Norman noble who earned these lands through his service to William the Conqueror. Below him, his lady wife, Dame Eleanor, oversees the domestic affairs of the castle with the assistance of her personal servants and ladies-in-waiting. But it is the vast network of servants, from the highest-ranking seneschal to the lowest scullery maid, who truly make the castle function as a living, breathing entity. Aldrich belongs to the middle ranks of this hierarchy. As a groom, he holds more status than the kitchen servants or the boys who tend the fires, but he remains far below the marshal who oversees all the castle's horses, or the chamberlain who manages the lord's personal affairs. This careful ordering of society extends into every aspect of castle life, determining not only what work each person performs, but where they sleep, what they eat, and even whom they might hope to marry. The stables where Aldrich works are built into the lower level of the castle, their thick walls providing protection for the valuable war horses that represent not only transportation, but the very foundation of medieval military power. These destriers, as the largest war horses are called, can cost more than a peasant family might earn in several lifetimes. Each animal represents a significant investment, and their care requires both skill and dedication. As Aldrich enters the dim warmth of the stables, he is greeted by the soft nickering of horses and the sweet smell of fresh hay. The familiar sounds and scents comfort him, for this is his domain, the place where he feels most capable and sure of himself. He moves with practiced efficiency from stall to stall, checking each animal for signs of illness or injury, running experienced hands along their legs to feel for heat or swelling that might indicate problems. The first horse he tends is Thunderbolt, Lord Geoffrey's personal destrier, a massive black stallion with a temperament as fierce as his appearance. This animal has carried his master through numerous battles, and the scars along his flanks tell stories of conflicts that Aldrich can only imagine. The horse knows him well, lowering his great head to allow the young groom to check his eyes and mouth, a sign of trust that has been earned through months of patient, consistent care. Medieval horses required constant attention to remain in fighting condition. Their hooves needed regular cleaning and trimming. Their coats required daily brushing to prevent skin conditions, and their diet had to be carefully managed to maintain their strength without making them too spirited to control. Aldrich has learned to read the subtle signs that indicate a horse's health and mood, knowledge that could mean the difference between life and death for a knight in battle. The feeding of the horses follows a precise routine that has been established through generations of experience. The destriers receive the finest oats and barley, carefully measured portions that provide the energy needed for warfare while maintaining their health. The palfreys, the gentler riding horses used for everyday travel, receive a slightly different mixture, while the pack animals and cart horses make do with hay and whatever grain can be spared. Water is drawn fresh from the castle well each morning, carried in heavy wooden buckets that leave Aldrich's arms aching by the time all the animals have been served. The well water is considered superior to that which might be found in streams or ponds, as it is less likely to carry the diseases that can quickly spread through a stable, potentially devastating the Lord's most valuable assets. As the morning progresses, other servants begin to appear in the courtyard outside the stables. Marta, a kitchen maid whose friendship with Aldrich has grown over the past months, hurries past carrying a wooden bucket filled with kitchen scraps destined for the pigs. She offers him a quick smile and a brief wave, but there is no time for conversation. The castle's schedule waits for no one, and each servant must complete their assigned tasks or face the displeasure of their superiors. The kitchen where Marta spends her days represents one of the most important areas of castle life. Under the supervision of the head cook, a stern man named Master Guillaume, who learned his trade in the kitchens of Norman nobility, a small army of servants works to feed the castle's inhabitants. The great hearth burns constantly, its flames casting dancing shadows on the stone walls as enormous pots bubble with stews and broths that will feed dozens of hungry mouths. The castle's food stores are located in the lower levels, where the cool temperatures help preserve meat, grain, and other provisions. These stores must last through the long winter months, when fresh supplies become scarce or impossible to obtain. The careful management of these resources falls to the castle's seneschal, but it is the kitchen servants who transform raw ingredients into the meals that sustain the castle's community. Breakfast in an early medieval castle is a simple affair, typically consisting of bread and ale for most servants, with perhaps some cheese or preserved meat for those of higher status. The bread is baked fresh each morning in the castle's ovens, great stone structures that retain heat for hours and can accommodate multiple loaves at once. The distinctive aroma of baking bread serves as an unofficial signal that the day has truly begun. Marta's day begins well before dawn, as she helps to stoke the kitchen fires and prepare the morning meal. Her hands, like those of all kitchen servants, bear the permanent marks of her labour, small burns and cuts that heal into pale scars, testament to the countless hours spent near open flames and sharp knives. Despite the hardships, she finds satisfaction in her work, particularly when the head cook acknowledges her improving skills with a rare word of praise. The brewing of ale falls under the supervision of the castle's alewife, a position of considerable responsibility given that ale serves as the primary beverage for most castle inhabitants. Water, while available, is often considered unsafe to drink, making ale an essential part of the daily diet for people of all ages. The process of brewing requires skill and experience, as well as access to the necessary ingredients and equipment. The castle's chapel plays a central role in the daily rhythm of life, its bells marking the canonical hours that divide the day into distinct periods of work and prayer. Even servants who cannot read or write are expected to participate in the religious life of the castle, attending Mass when their duties permit, and observing the holy days that punctuate the medieval calendar. Brother Thomas, the castle chaplain, is a learned man who has spent years in the service of the church before accepting his position at Thornfield Castle. He serves not only as spiritual advisor to the Lord and his family, but also as educator to the castle's children and keeper of what few written records the castle maintains. His small chamber, adjacent to the chapel, serves as both study and scriptorium, where he carefully copies important documents and maintains the castle's accounts. The relationship between the nobility and their servants in early medieval times was complex, governed by traditions and expectations that had evolved over centuries. While servants were expected to show proper deference to their social superiors, good lords recognised that their power depended upon the loyalty and efficiency of those who served them. This created a system of mutual obligations, where servants who performed their duties faithfully could expect protection and support from their masters. Aldrich's position as groom provides him with certain privileges not available to lower-ranking servants. He has his own small chamber in the servants' quarters, a space barely large enough for a straw mattress and a wooden chest for his few possessions, but private nonetheless. Many servants sleep in communal chambers or even in the spaces where they work, making privacy a luxury that few can afford. The clothing worn by castle servants reflects both their practical needs and their social status. Aldrich's daily garb consists of a rough linen tunic, woolen hose, and leather boots that have been repaired multiple times. Over this, he wears a leather jerkin that provides protection from the elements and the occasional kick from a spirited horse. His cloak, made of thick wool, serves as both outer garment and blanket, essential protection against the cold stone walls and draughty passages of the castle. The colours of servants' clothing are typically muted browns, greys, and undyed natural tones, both because bright dyes are expensive and because sumptuary laws in many regions restrict the colours that people of different social classes may wear. However, servants who work directly with the lord or his family may be provided with livery in the family colours, a visible sign of their elevated status within the servant hierarchy. As the morning advances, the castle comes fully to life. The sounds of daily labour fill the air, from the ring of the blacksmith's hammer to the steady rhythm of servants' feet on stone stairs. In the great hall, servants begin preparing for the midday meal, arranging trestle tables and benches that will accommodate the castle's inhabitants according to their rank and status. The great hall serves as the social centre of castle life, the space where the community gathers for meals, celebrations, and important announcements. The high table, elevated on a platform at one end of the hall, is reserved for the lord and his family, while servants and retainers arrange themselves at lower tables according to their status. This physical arrangement reinforces the social hierarchy that governs every aspect of castle life. The castle's chamberlain, Master Robert, moves through the halls with the quiet authority of long experience. He has served the de Montfort family for over 20 years, beginning as a page in the household of Lord Geoffrey's father, and rising through the ranks through a combination of loyalty, competence, and careful attention to the complex web of relationships that define noble society. His responsibilities include overseeing the Lord's personal servants, managing the castle's finances, and ensuring that the daily operations of the household proceed smoothly. The position of Chamberlain requires not only administrative skills, but also the ability to navigate the subtle politics of court life. Master Robert must be diplomat and administrator, counsellor, and disciplinarian, always mindful of his place in the hierarchy while exercising considerable authority over those beneath him. His chamber, located near the Lord's private apartments, contains the records and documents that track the castle's income and expenditures, a responsibility that requires both literacy and mathematical skill. The castle's defences require constant maintenance, a task that falls to a combination of specialist craftsmen and general labourers. The thick stone walls must be regularly inspected for signs of weakness or decay, while the wooden structures within the castle need frequent repair and replacement. The blacksmith's forge works constantly, producing not only weapons and armour, but also the countless iron fittings, tools and hardware that keep the castle functioning. Master Edmund, the castle's blacksmith, represents one of the most skilled and respected craftsmen in the castle community. His forge, located in a separate building due to the fire hazard it represents, glows with heat throughout the day as he shapes iron into useful forms. The sound of his hammer on anvil provides a steady percussion that underlies all other castle sounds, a reminder of the constant labour required to maintain medieval life. The blacksmith's craft requires years of training and experience to master. The ability to judge the temperature of iron by its colour, to know exactly when metal has reached the proper heat for shaping, represents knowledge that cannot be learned from books but only through long practice. Master Edmund began his training as a young boy, working the bellows and learning to tend the fire before gradually advancing to more complex tasks. The castle's water supply represents one of its most critical resources, essential not only for drinking and cooking, but also for the many cleaning tasks that maintain sanitation and health. The well in the main courtyard provides the primary source of fresh water, supplemented by cisterns that collect rainwater from the castle's roofs. The daily task of drawing and carrying water falls primarily to the younger servants, whose strong backs and willingness to climb the many stairs make them suitable for this demanding work. Young Thomas, barely 14 years old and new to castle service, spends much of his day carrying water to the various parts of the castle where it is needed. The kitchen requires a constant supply for cooking and cleaning, while the stables need fresh water for the horses and for washing down the stalls. The Lord and Lady's chambers must be supplied with water for washing, while the castle's few bathing facilities require regular replenishment. The weight of a full water bucket strains Thomas's young shoulders, but he has learned to pace himself throughout the day, taking breaks when possible and varying his route to avoid the steepest stairs whenever circumstances permit. Like all new servants, he is eager to prove his worth and advance to more prestigious duties, knowing that his current position represents only the first step in what he hopes will be a long career of service. The castle's sanitation arrangements, while primitive by modern standards, represent careful adaptations to the challenges of maintaining health and cleanliness in a crowded stone environment. The guardrobe, or castle privy, are typically located in small chambers built into the thickness of the walls, with waste dropping into pits or, in more sophisticated castles, flowing away through carefully engineered drainage systems. The maintenance of these facilities falls to the least prestigious servants, often newcomers like Thomas, who must prove themselves before advancing to more desirable positions. The work is unpleasant but essential, and those who perform it faithfully without complaint demonstrate the reliability and dedication that castle administrators value in their staff. As midday approaches, the pace of activity throughout the castle intensifies. The kitchen servants work furiously to prepare the main meal of the day, while others prepare the great hall for the formal dining that represents one of the most important social rituals of castle life. The careful arrangement of tables, benches, and place settings reflects not only practical considerations, but also the complex social hierarchy that governs medieval society. The arrival of the lord and lady in the great hall signals the beginning of the midday meal, the most formal and elaborate of the day's dining occasions. Servants line up according to their rank and function, each knowing precisely their role in the choreographed service that will follow. The presentation of food becomes a kind of performance, with each course arriving at exactly the proper moment and being served according to traditions that have been refined over generations. Aldrich's duties occasionally bring him into the great hall during meals, particularly when messages must be delivered regarding the horses or when the lord plans to ride and needs his mount prepared. These moments provide him with glimpses into the world of the nobility, a realm of fine clothing, elaborate meals, and complex social rituals that exists parallel to but separate from the world of servants. The food served in the great hall reflects both the castle's wealth and the seasonal availability of ingredients. In autumn, the tables might feature roasted meats from animals slaughtered as winter approaches, supplemented by fresh bread, aged cheeses, and the last fruits of the harvest season. The presentation of these dishes follows elaborate customs that transform eating into a display of social status and cultural refinement. Wine, when available, is reserved for the high table, while servants and lower-ranking retainers drink ale or, on special occasions, mead made from honey. The careful allocation of these beverages reflects the economic realities of castle life, where every resource must be managed carefully to ensure that supplies last through the difficult winter months. The afternoon hours bring their own rhythm of work and activity. The horses that were exercised in the morning must be groomed and checked again, their stalls cleaned and fresh bedding provided. Aldrich moves through these tasks with the efficiency of long practice, his hands automatically performing the familiar motions while his mind wanders to other concerns. The seasonal nature of medieval life means that autumn brings specific challenges and opportunities. The harvest has been gathered, and the castle storerooms are filled with grain, preserved meat, and other provisions that must last until the following year's harvest. This is a time of both abundance and anxiety, as everyone knows that the supplies visible today must sustain the entire castle community through the long months of winter. The slaughter of animals in autumn provides fresh meat that must be preserved through smoking, salting, or other techniques that will prevent spoilage. The castle smokehouse works constantly during this season, filling the air with the distinctive aroma of wood smoke and curing meat. Servants work in shifts to maintain the fires and monitor the preservation process, knowing that their winter diet depends on the success of these efforts. The castle's gardens, tended primarily by servants under the direction of an experienced gardener, produce vegetables and herbs that supplement the basic diet of bread and meat. Root vegetables, like turnips and carrots, can be stored in cool cellars for months, while herbs are dried and preserved for both culinary and medicinal use. The knowledge required to successfully grow, harvest, and preserve these crops represents generations of accumulated wisdom. Brother Thomas maintains a small herb garden near the chapel, where he grows plants used both for cooking and for the simple medical treatments that constitute medieval healthcare. His knowledge of herbs comes partly from books, but mostly from the oral traditions passed down through generations of monks and healers. The ability to treat common ailments with plant-based remedies represents an essential skill in a world where professional medical care is rare and expensive. The afternoon also brings time for the maintenance tasks that keep the castle functioning. Servants repair clothing, maintain tools, and tend to the countless small problems that arise in any complex community. The castle's carpenter works constantly, repairing everything from broken furniture to damaged roof timbers, while servants with sewing skills work to mend the clothing and linens that suffer constant wear in the harsh environment of castle life. The social relationships among servants form a complex network that provides both support and occasional conflict. Friendships develop naturally among those who work together, but competition for advancement and resources can also create tensions. The careful observation of hierarchy and precedence helps maintain order, but it also requires constant attention to the subtle indicators of status and authority. Marta's friendship with Aldrich represents a common pattern in castle life, where young people of similar age and status find companionship and mutual support in their shared circumstances. Their relationship remains carefully within the bounds of propriety, as any suggestion of improper behaviour could result in severe punishment or dismissal from service. Yet the emotional support they provide each other helps make bearable the long hours and difficult conditions of their daily lives. The evening meal in the castle is typically simpler than the elaborate midday feast, often consisting of bread, ale, and perhaps some cheese or leftover meat from earlier in the day. Servants eat in shifts, with those responsible for serving the nobility eating only after their masters have been satisfied. This arrangement means that some servants do not eat their evening meal until well after dark, when the long day's work is finally complete. The lighting of the castle after dark represents both a practical necessity and a significant expense. Candles made from animal fat provide the primary source of illumination, supplemented by torches and rushlights that burn throughout the night in essential areas. The cost of these materials means that most servants must make do with minimal lighting, retiring to sleep soon after sunset and rising before dawn to make the most of natural light. Aldrich's evening routine includes a final check of the horses, ensuring that each animal is comfortable and secure for the night. The stables must be carefully secured against both thieves and predators, and the value of the horses means that someone must always be available to respond to any emergency that might arise during the night hours. The sleeping arrangements for servants reflect their status within the castle hierarchy. Higher-ranking servants may have small private chambers, while others share larger rooms or sleep in the spaces where they work. Straw mattresses provide basic comfort, while woolen blankets offer protection against the cold that penetrates even the thickest stone walls during winter nights. The castle's night watch maintains security throughout the dark hours, with guards walking regular patrols along the walls and through the courtyards. The responsibility for night security falls primarily to men-at-arms and professional soldiers, but servants may be called upon to assist in emergencies or to perform specific duties that cannot wait until morning. The sounds of night in a medieval castle are distinctive and constant. The wind whistles through stone passages, while the settling of massive timber beams creates occasional groans and creaks. Animals move restlessly in their stalls, and the distant sound of guards calling the hour provides reassurance that all is well within the protective walls. Sleep for castle servants is often interrupted by the demands of their duties. The night watch may need assistance, animals may require attention, or emergencies may arise that demand immediate response. The ability to function effectively on limited sleep becomes an essential skill for anyone hoping to succeed in castle service. The religious rhythm of castle life continues even through the night hours, with the chapel bells marking the monastic hours of matins and lauds. While servants are not required to attend these late-night services, the sound of the bells provides a comforting reminder of the spiritual framework that encompasses all medieval life. The winter months bring particular challenges for castle life, with shorter days, colder temperatures, and limited opportunities for fresh supplies from outside the castle walls. The careful management of resources becomes even more critical during this season, and servants must adapt their routines to make the most of the reduced daylight hours. The preservation of warmth becomes a constant concern during winter, with servants responsible for maintaining fires throughout the castle. The great hearths in the hall and kitchen burn constantly, but smaller fires in private chambers must be carefully tended to prevent waste, while ensuring adequate heat. The collection and preparation of firewood represents a major undertaking that occupies many servants throughout the autumn months. The social dynamics of castle life intensify during the winter months, when the community becomes more isolated and dependent on its own resources. Entertainment becomes more important as a way to maintain morale during the long dark evenings, and servants may participate in storytelling, singing, or simple games that help pass the time. The skills required for successful castle service extend far beyond the specific duties assigned to each position. Servants must learn to read the moods and expectations of their superiors, to anticipate needs before they're expressed, and to adapt quickly to changing circumstances. The ability to work effectively as part of a team, while also taking individual initiative, represents a delicate balance that successful servants must master. The opportunities for advancement within castle service depend on a combination of factors, including demonstrated competence, loyalty, availability of positions, and sometimes personal connections or patronage. A young servant like Thomas might hope to advance from water carrier to stable boy, then perhaps to groom, and eventually to positions of greater responsibility and status. Such advancement typically takes years and requires consistent demonstration of reliability and skill. The economic relationships within castle life are complex, involving not only wages but also provisions of food, shelter, clothing, and other necessities. Many servants receive only minimal cash payments, with most of their compensation coming in the form of room and board provided by their employers. This system creates strong bonds of dependency, but also ensures that servants have security and support that might not be available to free labourers. The legal status of castle servants varies considerably depending on their specific circumstances and the customs of their region. Some are free men and women who have entered into voluntary agreements of service, while others may be bound by various forms of feudal obligation. The practical implications of these distinctions affect everything from marriage rights to the ability to leave service for other opportunities. The seasonal cycle of castle life creates distinct rhythms and challenges throughout the year. Spring brings renewed activity as travel becomes easier and fresh supplies become available, while summer provides opportunities for military campaigns and extended journeys. Autumn requires intensive preparation for winter, and winter itself demands careful conservation of resources and adaptation to reduced activity levels. The castle's role as both residence and fortress means that servants must be prepared to adapt to military needs when circumstances require. During times of conflict, normal routines may be disrupted as the castle prepares for siege or serves as a staging area for military operations. Servants may find themselves pressed into service, supporting military activities, from caring for extra horses to helping prepare defences. The medical care available to castle servants is limited, but represents the best that medieval society can provide. The castle may have access to a physician or surgeon who can treat serious injuries and illnesses, while Brother Thomas provides basic medical care using herbal remedies and traditional treatments. The prevention of illness through proper sanitation and nutrition receives attention, though knowledge of disease transmission remains limited. The education available to servants is typically practical rather than formal, focusing on the skills needed for their specific duties. However, those who show aptitude and interest may receive instruction in reading and writing, particularly if their duties require these skills. The castle's chaplain often serves as educator, providing basic instruction to children and interested adults when time permits. The cultural life of the castle includes not only the formal entertainment provided for the nobility, but also the informal activities that servants create for themselves. Storytelling, singing, and simple games provide entertainment during leisure hours, while seasonal celebrations and religious festivals offer opportunities for more elaborate activities that involve the entire castle community. The relationships between different types of servants create a complex social network within the castle community. Kitchen servants may trade food for services from craft workers, while stable servants might provide transportation in exchange for manufactured goods. These informal exchanges help create bonds of mutual support and cooperation that strengthen the overall community. The impact of weather on castle life extends beyond simple comfort to affect every aspect of daily operations. Rain may prevent outdoor work and military activities, while extreme cold can make certain tasks dangerous or impossible. Servants must learn to adapt their routines to weather conditions while still meeting the essential needs of the castle community. The maintenance of personal hygiene in a medieval castle requires creativity and resourcefulness given the limited facilities available. Servants typically wash using basins of water in their quarters, with opportunities for more thorough bathing rare and often seasonal. The castle may have bathing facilities for the nobility, but servants usually make do with simpler arrangements. The care of clothing and personal possessions represents an ongoing challenge for castle servants, who must make their limited wardrobes last through hard use and harsh conditions. Skills in sewing, patching, and general maintenance become essential for anyone hoping to maintain a respectable appearance while performing demanding physical labour. The seasonal availability of food creates distinct patterns in castle dining throughout the year. Fresh meat from autumn slaughter gives way to preserved and salted provisions during winter, while spring brings opportunities for fresh vegetables and herbs from the castle gardens. Summer provides the greatest variety of fresh foods, though the challenges of preservation without refrigeration remain constant concerns. The castle's defensive preparations require ongoing maintenance and periodic updates as military technology and tactics evolve. Servants may be called upon to assist with repairs to walls and fortifications, while the maintenance of weapons and armour requires specialised skills and constant attention. The balance between defensive readiness and daily comfort must be carefully managed. The spiritual life of castle servants encompasses both formal religious observances and personal devotions that provide comfort and meaning in difficult circumstances. The castle chapel serves as the centre of religious life, but personal prayer and reflection play important roles in helping individuals cope with the challenges and uncertainties of medieval life. The training of new servants requires experienced workers to share their knowledge and skills while continuing to perform their own duties. This informal apprenticeship system ensures that essential knowledge is passed down through generations, while also creating mentor relationships that provide support and guidance for newcomers to castle life. The impact of political events and broader social changes filters down to affect even the daily lives of castle servants. Changes in lordship, shifts in royal policy, or broader conflicts may alter the castle's circumstances and create new challenges or opportunities for those who serve within its walls. The castle's economic relationships with the surrounding countryside involve complex exchanges of goods and services that affect the lives of servants as well as nobles. The castle may provide protection and markets for local farmers and craftsmen, while depending on them for supplies and specialised services that cannot be produced within the castle walls. The seasonal festivals and celebrations of the medieval calendar provide important breaks in the routine of castle life, offering opportunities for enhanced meals, entertainment, and social interaction. These occasions often involve increased work for servants in preparation, but they also provide rewards in the form of better food, ale, and entertainment that make the extra effort worthwhile. The balance between individual needs and community obligations creates ongoing tensions that must be carefully managed in castle life. Servants must learn to subordinate personal desires to the needs of their duties and the expectations of their superiors, while still maintaining the personal relationships and individual initiative necessary for long-term success and satisfaction. As night deepens around Thornfield Castle, the servants settle into their rest, knowing that tomorrow will bring another day of similar challenges and responsibilities. The rhythms of castle life continue unchanged, sustained by the labour and dedication of those who serve within these stone walls. Their individual stories may be largely unrecorded by history, but their collective contribution creates the foundation upon which medieval society rests. The castle sleeps, but it never truly rests. Guards continue their patrols, fires burn low but steady, and the great wheels of medieval life turn slowly but inexorably forward. In a few hours the chapel bells will ring once again, and the cycle will begin anew, as it has for generations and will continue for generations to come. In this world of stone and tradition, where change comes slowly and life follows patterns established centuries ago, the castle servants find meaning and purpose in their daily labour. Their lives may seem simple compared to the complexity of modern existence, but they contain depths of human experience that transcend time and circumstance. The autumn wind whispers through the castle passages, carrying the scents of wood smoke and dying leaves, reminding all who dwell within these walls of the eternal cycle of seasons that governs both nature and human life. Tomorrow will bring new challenges and familiar duties, but tonight there is rest within the protective embrace of stone walls and shared community. The great castle settles into sleep, its stones still warm from the day's sun, its inhabitants secure in the knowledge that they are part of something larger than themselves. In the morning, they will rise again to tend the horses, prepare the meals, maintain the walls, and perform the countless other tasks that keep their medieval world functioning. But for now, there is peace in the knowledge of work well done and rest well earned. As the last candle gutters out in the servants' quarters, darkness claims the castle corridors, broken only by the occasional torch and the soft glow of carefully banked fires. The sounds of night surround the castle, from the distant call of an owl to the soft footsteps of the night watch making their rounds. Within these walls, a community sleeps, dreams, and prepares for another day in the endless rhythm of medieval life. The stars wheel overhead, indifferent to the small human dramas playing out within the castle walls, but somehow providing comfort in their eternal constancy. The servants of Thornfield Castle sleep under the same stars that have watched over countless generations of their predecessors, part of a chain of human experience that stretches back into the mists of time and forward into an unknowable future. In their dreams, perhaps they imagine lives different from their own, adventures beyond the familiar walls of home, or simple pleasures not yet experienced. But when they wake, they will return to the duties and relationships that define their existence, finding satisfaction in work well done and community well served. The castle stands as it has stood for decades, as it may stand for centuries to come, a monument to human ambition and ingenuity, but also a home to the servants, whose daily labour makes such monuments possible. Their names may not be carved in stone or recorded in chronicles, but their lives give meaning to the grand structures and noble pretensions of their age. As sleep claims the last of the wakeful servants, the castle achieves a kind of perfect peace, its daily purpose is fulfilled, its community secure within walls that have protected them through countless nights, just like this one. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but tonight belongs to rest and dreams, and the quiet satisfaction of duty completed. The great cycle of medieval life continues, as inevitable as sunrise, as enduring as stone, as precious as the individual human lives that give it meaning and purpose. In the service of castle and lord, in the bonds of community and tradition, the servants of the early medieval world find their place in the great story of human civilization. Sleep comes gently to Thornfield Castle, wrapping its inhabitants in dreams of home and hope, of duty and devotion, of the simple satisfactions that make life worth living even in the most challenging circumstances. The servants rest, secure in the knowledge that they are part of something enduring and important, their individual contributions woven into the great tapestry of medieval life. The castle dreams, and in its dreams, the past and future meet in an eternal present, where human needs and aspirations remain constant despite the passage of centuries. The servants who walk its halls today follow in the footsteps of those who came before, and prepare the way for those who will come after, each generation adding its own thread to the continuing story of life within these ancient walls. Let's now skip ahead to see what life was like as a servant living in a castle in high medieval times. Welcome to the golden age of medieval civilization, to the year 1247, when great cathedrals pierce the sky and castle life has reached new heights of sophistication. Tonight, we'll explore how servant life evolved during the high medieval period, witnessing a world far more complex and refined than the simpler times that came before. Let the intricate rhythms of this more elaborate castle society guide you gently toward restful sleep. The morning bells of Ravenshollow Castle ring out across a landscape transformed by centuries of progress and refinement. It is the reign of Henry III, and England has become a realm where castle life represents the pinnacle of medieval civilization. Within these walls, the role of servants has evolved into something far more specialized and hierarchical than their predecessors could have imagined. Dame Beatrice rises in her solar, a private chamber that would have been unthinkable in earlier times, attended by a retinue of personal servants whose very existence speaks to the increased wealth and complexity of 13th century noble life. Her lady's maid, Cecilia, moves with practiced grace through the elaborate ritual of dressing a noblewoman, handling garments of silk and fine wool that represent the fruits of expanding trade networks and growing prosperity. The transformation of castle servant life in the high medieval period reflects broader changes in society itself. Where once a handful of servants might have sufficed for a Norman lord's basic needs, the great castles of the 13th century employ hundreds of specialists, each with carefully defined roles in an increasingly complex social machine. Master Hugh, the castle's seneschal, oversees this vast household with the skill of a general commanding an army. His position has evolved far beyond the simple stewardship of earlier times to encompass responsibilities that would challenge any modern administrator. The account rolls he maintains record not just basic supplies and expenses, but detailed records of an economic enterprise that spans multiple estates and involves complex financial relationships with merchants, craftsmen, and other nobles. The Great Hall of Ravenshollow Castle demonstrates the evolution of medieval architecture and social customs. Where earlier halls were simple spaces for communal dining, this magnificent chamber soars upward with ribbed vaulting and pointed arches that speak of Gothic innovation. Stained glass windows cast coloured light across stone floors, while elaborate tapestries depicting heroic scenes provide both decoration and insulation against the cold. The service of meals in this hall has become a choreographed performance of remarkable complexity. The pantler, responsible for bread and napery, oversees servants who have trained for years to master the intricate protocols of high medieval dining. The butler manages an extensive wine cellar stocked with vintages from across Europe, while the cook commands a kitchen operation that would not seem out of place in a modern restaurant. Alice, a young woman who serves as one of Dame Beatrice's personal attendants, represents the new opportunities available to servants in this more sophisticated age. Unlike her predecessors, who might have performed any task required, Alice has specialised training in the care of fine fabrics, the mixing of cosmetics, and the complex etiquette of noble society. Her position offers not just employment, but education in skills that could serve her throughout her life. The castle's chapel has expanded far beyond the simple religious functions of earlier times. Brother Francis, an Oxford-educated clerk, maintains not just the spiritual life of the castle, but also serves as secretary, librarian, and educator. His scriptorium produces beautifully illuminated manuscripts, while his school provides education to the children of both nobles and upper servants, reflecting the growing importance of literacy in medieval society. The seasonal rhythm of castle life has become more elaborate and ceremonially complex. The celebration of Christmas now extends for 12 days of increasingly elaborate festivities, requiring months of preparation by dozens of servants. The great feasts that mark these celebrations involve culinary achievements that would have amazed earlier generations, with dishes prepared according to recipes that have been refined through generations of practice. The castle's connections to the wider world have multiplied dramatically since the earlier medieval period. Merchants arrive regularly with goods from across Europe and beyond, bringing spices from the east, furs from the north, and wines from France. The servants responsible for receiving and managing these goods must possess knowledge of currencies, weights and measures, and quality standards that reflect the international nature of 13th century trade. Lady Margaret, Dame Beatrice's daughter, represents the new model of noble femininity that has emerged during the high medieval period. Her education includes not just traditional domestic skills, but also music, dancing, and knowledge of literature that reflects the flowering of courtly culture. The servants who attend her must be prepared to assist with activities that would have been unknown to earlier generations. The castle's defences have evolved to meet new military challenges, incorporating innovations in siege warfare and castle design that reflect centuries of experience in medieval conflict. The constable who oversees these defences commands not just soldiers but also engineers, craftsmen, and specialists whose skills represent the cutting edge of medieval military technology. The elaborate system of ranks and precedence that governs servant life has become almost Byzantine in its complexity. Where earlier castles might have had simple distinctions between higher and lower servants, Ravenshollow maintains careful hierarchies within each department, with advancement possible through demonstrated skill, loyalty, and sometimes the favour of influential patrons. William, a young man who serves in the castle's marshalsea, tends horses that represent the pinnacle of medieval breeding programs. The destriers in his care are not just larger and stronger than their predecessors, but trained to a level of sophistication that reflects the evolution of knightly warfare. The care of these animals requires knowledge of veterinary medicine, nutrition, and training techniques that have been developed through generations of experience. The castle's economic relationships extend far beyond the simple agricultural rents that supported earlier establishments. Dame Beatrice's household receives income from urban properties, investments in merchant ventures, and complex financial instruments that reflect the growing sophistication of medieval commerce. The servants responsible for managing these relationships must possess skills that bridge the gap between traditional feudal service and emerging capitalist practices. The dining customs of the high medieval period reflect not just increased wealth, but also the influence of courtly culture that has spread from the courts of France throughout European nobility. The elaborate etiquette that governs meals requires servants who understand not just practical service, but also the symbolic meanings embedded in every gesture and arrangement. Emma, who works in the castle's extensive kitchens, prepares dishes that incorporate ingredients and techniques unknown to earlier generations. The spice trade has brought flavors from across the known world, while contact with Islamic civilization has introduced new methods of food preparation and preservation. Her work represents not just cooking, but culinary artistry that reflects the cultural sophistication of the age. The castle's library, an innovation that would have been inconceivable in earlier times, houses manuscripts that represent the accumulated knowledge of medieval civilization. The servants responsible for its care must be literate and possess understanding of the value and proper handling of books that represent enormous investments of time and resources. The religious life of the castle has become more elaborate and ceremonially complex, reflecting the broader development of medieval Christianity. The chapel services now involve elaborate music, complex liturgies, and artistic elements that require servants with specialized training in religious protocols and ceremonies. The guest chambers of Raven's Hollow Castle can accommodate visitors in a style that reflects the castle's status and the growing importance of hospitality in medieval culture. The servants responsible for guest accommodation must be prepared to provide service that meets the expectations of nobles accustomed to the highest standards of comfort and ceremony. Master Thomas, the castle's treasurer, manages financial resources that dwarf those available to earlier castle administrators. His records track not just income and expenses, but also investments, loans, and complex financial relationships that reflect the growing monetary sophistication of the 13th century. The castle's workshops produce goods that serve not just practical needs, but also artistic and decorative purposes that reflect the cultural flowering of the high medieval period. The craftsmen who work in these spaces, while not technically servants, are integrated into the castle community in ways that reflect the growing complexity of medieval economic relationships. The seasonal migrations of the noble family between different residences require logistical planning and execution that would challenge any modern event coordinator. The servants responsible for these moves must coordinate the transportation of hundreds of people, thousands of possessions, and all the supplies necessary to maintain noble lifestyle while travelling. The medical care available within the castle reflects the growing sophistication of medieval medicine, influenced by contact with Islamic medical knowledge and the establishment of medical schools in European universities. The castle's physician, Master Gerard, trained at the Medical School of Salerno, represents a level of professional medical knowledge far beyond the simple herbal remedies of earlier times. The education of young nobles within the castle has become a formal process that requires servants with specialized knowledge of literature, music, and the complex social skills required for success in medieval court culture. The tutors and governesses who provide this education occupy positions that bridge the gap between servant and professional, reflecting the growing importance of education in medieval society. The castle's connections to religious institutions have become more complex and mutually beneficial, with the castle supporting monasteries and religious foundations while receiving spiritual services and educational benefits in return. The servants involved in maintaining these relationships must understand the intricate protocols of medieval religious culture. The elaborate ceremonies that mark important events in the life of the noble family require planning and execution that involves dozens of servants working in carefully coordinated teams. The marriage of Lady Margaret, for instance, will require months of preparation and will involve servants whose specialized knowledge of ceremony and protocol reflects the importance of public display in medieval culture. The castle's agricultural operations have become more sophisticated and productive, incorporating new techniques and crops that reflect the agricultural revolution of the high medieval period. The servants involved in overseeing these operations must possess knowledge of crop rotation, animal husbandry, and market conditions that reflects the growing commercialization of medieval agriculture. The legal business of the castle has expanded to include not just traditional feudal obligations, but also commercial contracts, property transactions, and legal disputes that reflect the growing complexity of medieval law. The clerks responsible for maintaining legal records must be educated in legal procedures and documentation that would have been unknown to earlier generations. The castle's role as a centre of local government has expanded significantly, with the Lord's Court handling increasingly complex legal and administrative matters. The servants involved in these proceedings must understand legal procedures, maintain accurate records, and coordinate with royal officials in ways that reflect the growing integration of local and royal authority. The entertainment provided for the noble family and their guests has become more elaborate and sophisticated, involving professional musicians, storytellers, and performers whose skills reflect the cultural flowering of the high medieval period. The servants responsible for coordinating these entertainments must possess knowledge of courtly culture and artistic traditions that spans the known world. The castle's defensive preparations now involve not just traditional military considerations, but also the complex logistics of siege warfare that can last for months. The servants involved in these preparations must understand the storage and preservation of supplies, the maintenance of siege engines, and the complex procedures required to maintain a castle's defences during extended conflict. The personal hygiene and grooming standards of the noble family have become more elaborate and demanding, requiring servants with specialised knowledge of cosmetics, perfumes, and personal care that reflects both increased wealth and contact with more sophisticated cultures. The bathhouses and grooming chambers of the castle represent luxury that would have been unimaginable to earlier generations. The textile production within the castle has become more sophisticated, producing not just basic clothing, but also decorative fabrics and elaborate garments that reflect the artistic achievements of medieval craftsmen. The servants involved in this production must possess skills in weaving, dyeing, and embroidery that represent generations of accumulated knowledge and experience. The castle stables have expanded to accommodate not just war horses, but also palfreys for everyday riding, pack animals for transportation, and specialised horses for hunting and ceremonial purposes. The servants responsible for their care must understand the different needs and training requirements of each type of animal, reflecting the specialisation that characterises high medieval castle life. The management of the castle's water supply has become more sophisticated, incorporating engineering innovations that provide better sanitation and more reliable access to clean water. The servants involved in maintaining these systems must understand the operation of pumps, cisterns, and drainage systems that represent significant technological achievements. The castle's relationships with urban centres have become more important and complex, involving commercial transactions, political negotiations, and cultural exchanges that reflect the growing importance of towns and cities in medieval society. The servants involved in maintaining these relationships must understand urban customs and commercial practices that differ significantly from traditional feudal relationships. The seasonal celebrations and festivals observed within the castle have become more elaborate and culturally sophisticated, incorporating traditions from across Europe and reflecting the international character of high medieval noble culture. The servants responsible for organising these celebrations must possess knowledge of music, dance, ceremonial protocols, and culinary traditions that spans multiple cultures. The castle's role in the broader political and military affairs of the realm has expanded significantly, with the Lord serving not just as a local magnate, but as a participant in national politics and international diplomacy. The servants involved in supporting these activities must understand courtly protocols, diplomatic procedures, and the complex etiquette of international relations. The technological innovations incorporated into the castle's daily operations reflect the mechanical and engineering advances of the high medieval period. Water-powered mills, improved heating systems, and more sophisticated siege defences require servants with technical knowledge and maintenance skills that would have been unknown to earlier generations. The religious obligations and opportunities available to castle servants have expanded significantly, with more elaborate religious services, expanded opportunities for pilgrimage, and greater access to religious education, reflecting the spiritual flowering of the high medieval period. The servants who participate in these activities often find in them not just spiritual comfort, but also opportunities for personal growth and social advancement. The castle's economic impact on the surrounding region has grown dramatically, with the household's consumption of goods and services supporting a complex network of craftsmen, merchants, and agricultural producers. The servants involved in managing these economic relationships must understand market conditions, quality standards, and commercial practices that reflect the growing sophistication of medieval commerce. The education and cultural opportunities available to servants have expanded significantly, with some servants receiving training in literacy, languages, and cultural skills that can lead to advancement within the castle hierarchy or opportunities for service in other noble households. This represents a significant change from earlier periods when servant education was limited to practical skills related to specific duties. The castle's medical facilities have expanded beyond simple first aid to include more sophisticated treatments and even surgical procedures performed by trained physicians. The servants who assist with medical care must possess knowledge of anatomy, pharmaceutical preparations, and medical procedures that reflect the growing sophistication of medieval medicine. The seasonal migration patterns of the noble family between different residences have become more elaborate and frequent, requiring constant coordination and logistical support from servants who must maintain multiple households in a state of readiness for occupation. This lifestyle reflects both the wealth of high medieval nobility and their participation in a more complex social and political world. The elaborate guest accommodations and entertainment facilities of the castle reflect the growing importance of hospitality and social networking in medieval noble culture. The servants responsible for guest services must be prepared to provide accommodation and entertainment that meets the expectations of visitors from across Europe, requiring knowledge of different cultural customs and social protocols. The castle's artistic and cultural productions have expanded to include not just practical crafts, but also decorative arts, music, and literature that reflect the cultural flowering of the high medieval period. The servants involved in these activities often possess skills and knowledge that bridge the gap between practical service and artistic achievement. The legal and administrative complexity of castle operations now requires servants with specialized knowledge of law, accounting, and administrative procedures that would have been unknown to earlier generations. These servants often possess education and skills that make them valuable not just within the castle, but in the broader world of medieval government and commerce. The technological and engineering innovations incorporated into castle design and operations require servants with technical knowledge and maintenance skills that reflect the mechanical advances of the high medieval period. These servants often possess specialized knowledge that makes them valuable beyond their immediate duties and can lead to opportunities for advancement and increased responsibility. The international connections and cultural exchanges that characterize high medieval noble life require servants who possess knowledge of languages, customs, and social protocols from across Europe and beyond. These servants often serve as intermediaries and facilitators in the complex web of relationships that connect medieval noble families across national and cultural boundaries. As evening approaches Ravenshollow Castle, the complexity and sophistication of high medieval servant life becomes even more apparent in the elaborate rituals that accompany the end of each day. The evening meal involves not just food service, but a ceremonial display that reflects the cultural achievements and social sophistication of the 13th century. The preparations for night in a high medieval castle involve not just practical considerations of security and comfort, but also the maintenance of the elaborate social and ceremonial standards that characterize this more sophisticated age. The servants responsible for these preparations must coordinate activities that involve dozens of people working in carefully orchestrated teams. The nighttime activities within the castle reflect not just rest and recovery, but also continued social, cultural, and administrative activities that demonstrate the complexity of high medieval noble life. The servants who support these activities often work in shifts that ensure continuous service throughout the night hours, reflecting the demanding standards of their age. The dreams and aspirations of high medieval castle servants reflect the expanded opportunities and increased complexity of their world. Where their predecessors might have hoped simply for security and basic comfort, these servants can aspire to education, advancement, and participation in a cultural and economic world that spans continents. The seasonal cycles that govern castle life have become more elaborate and ceremonially complex, incorporating traditions and celebrations that reflect the cultural sophistication and international connections of high medieval noble society. The servants who participate in these cycles often find in them not just work obligations, but opportunities for personal fulfillment and cultural enrichment. The legacy of high medieval castle servant life extends far beyond the immediate practical concerns of daily service to encompass participation in one of the great cultural achievements of human civilization. The servants who lived and worked within these walls contributed not just their labour, but also their skills, knowledge, and dedication to the creation of a society that represents one of the pinnacles of medieval achievement. As night settles over Ravenshollow Castle, the servants of this more sophisticated age can rest in the knowledge that their work contributes not just to the maintenance of a household, but to the continuation of a cultural and social achievement that represents centuries of human progress and refinement. Their individual contributions, while perhaps not recorded in the chronicles of great events, form the foundation upon which the entire elaborate structure of high medieval civilization rests. The castle sleeps, but its dreams are filled with the aspirations and achievements of a more complex and sophisticated age, where the simple service of earlier times has evolved into participation in one of the great cultural flowering periods of human history. Tomorrow will bring new challenges and opportunities that reflect the endless complexity and continuing evolution of medieval life at its most refined and accomplished. The stars that shine down upon Ravenshollow Castle illuminate not just another medieval fortress, but a centre of civilization that represents the achievements and aspirations of an entire age. The servants who rest within its walls can sleep peacefully, knowing that their lives and work contribute to something far greater than themselves, a cultural and social achievement that will inspire and influence countless generations yet to come. 24 hours as a servant. I wake before the sun, not by choice but by duty. The stones beneath my straw mattress are cold even in summer. They hold the night's chill like secrets, never fully giving in to warmth. I rub my eyes and pull the thin woolen blanket closer for one last moment of stillness. But the castle is already breathing, groaning, whispering, a living body made of stone, iron, and labour. I am a castle servant, lowly, mostly unseen, My name rarely matters. To the steward, I am boy or you there, even though I'm well past the age of boyhood. My sleeping nook lies just off the kitchens, close enough to feel the heat when the fires are stoked, but not so close as to be considered important. I swing my legs over the side of the bed, feet brushing the packed dirt floor. It's gritty with ash and crumbs, and the air is thick with the smell of tallow and damp bread. The first task is to light the fires. Without them, the kitchen women will not work, and without their work, no one eats. I move silently past others still asleep. Some younger boys, a pot girl, the old washerwoman curled like a leaf in a basket of linens. I take flint and strike it again and again. Sparks dance, then die. I try again. This time, the tinder catches, and a small flame crackles to life in the hearth. I coax it, feed it kindling, then larger logs. The fire grows, crackling with hunger. Smoke snakes upward, filling the chimney like a silent procession. The castle awakens slowly. Above us, nobles still sleep soundly on feather mattresses. Their day will not begin for hours, but for us, the invisible gears that keep this place turning, our time has come. By the time the cooks arrive, red-faced and muttering, I've lit 3 more fires. The kitchens grow warm, then sweltering. Porridge pots are filled and hung over the flames. Bread dough is kneaded by thick, tired hands. Chickens cluck nervously outside, sensing their fate. I clean pots from the night before, scraping hardened grease with a stiff brush of horsehair, rinsing them with icy water drawn from the cistern. The sun rises at last, casting orange light through the slit windows. I carry trays, wooden, heavy, laden with trenchers and mugs, to the servants' hall, then to the grooms, the squires, and the guards. They eat quickly, often standing, tearing at bread with their teeth, speaking little. I eat last, if at all. A crust here, a spoonful of broth there. Enough to keep my legs from buckling. Today is market day. The steward's voice rings out in the yard. He calls for me. You there, take the cart. Go with Thomas to fetch the grain. Don't dawdle. Thomas is a stable lad, a little older than me, but just as ragged. We lead the donkey cart down the winding path toward the village. The wheels creak over stones. Mist hangs in the trees. We speak in low voices, mostly of nothing. The road is quiet, save for the birds and the occasional distant bark of a dog. The market is alive. Voices rise like gulls, sharp, overlapping, persistent. Fishmongers shout prices. Bakers wave loaves in the air. Children weave through the crowd with sticky hands and wide eyes. We trade 2 chickens and a wheel of cheese for sacks of grain, some root vegetables, and a jug of honey mead for the steward. I carry what I can, loading it onto the cart, careful not to bruise the apples. A bruised apple brings a bruised cheek, as the steward once said. We linger for only minutes before turning back, though I wish to stay. The market is colour and sound and scent, an escape from stone walls and whispered orders. Back at the castle, the noon bell sounds, echoing, dull, final. The lord and lady will rise soon. That means more work, more watching. Every surface must be swept, rushes changed, a jug of warm water carried to the solar, slippers arranged. I am not to be seen, only felt, like a draught under the door or a breeze through the tapestry. Upstairs the walls narrow and darken. The Lord's chambers are silent, grand, intimidating. I lay the fresh rushes carefully. I do not speak, nor look too long at the tapestries, though I long to. They show battles, beasts, saints, and storms. I imagine myself within them, riding a horse into glory rather than carrying chamber pots. Back in the kitchens, the cook is shouting. The roast has not thawed properly. The herbs have gone limp. She sends me to the garden for fresh thyme and leeks. I run. I always run when sent. It shows urgency, respect. The garden is still damp with dew, rows of green stretching between crumbling walls. I pluck what I need, dirt under my nails, the scent of earth clinging to my sleeves. The afternoon is still ahead, and so much more to do. The sun sits high now, casting long beams through the high arrow slits of the great hall. Its golden touch warms the ancient stone, only slightly. These walls remember winters more than summers. Midday means the castle is at its noisiest. The clatter of boots, the creak of cartwheels, the clang of armour, and the distant barking of the steward's voice. The world above us stirs with intent, and that means more work for those of us below. I return to the kitchens just as the preparations for the midday meal are reaching their fever pitch. The cook, red-faced and wide-armed, stands at the centre of it all, like a conductor in a storm. Pot girls dart back and forth, dripping with sweat, cheeks flushed from the heat. Steam rises from cauldrons. Chickens are gutted. Bread is torn, not sliced. "Get more wood," she shouts, not even looking at me. I nod and run again. Always running. I pass a mason patching a crack in the courtyard wall, and the smell of mortar mixes with the smoke of the kitchens. By the time I reach the wood pile, my tunic clings to my back. I gather kindling and 2 thick logs, one under each arm. Back inside, I feed them to the fire. The flames roar up, grateful and greedy. The meal must be ready before the Lord's bell rings. We do not serve them directly. That task is for the upper servants, those with better teeth and tidier clothes. But we prepare it. We build the base of every feast, even if we never taste a bite. There's roasted duck today, stuffed with figs, a stew of venison, loaves soaked in spiced wine, and always trenchers, thick slabs of stale bread, used as plates and discarded when soaked through. If I'm lucky, I might be allowed one later. Soggy though it is, it's better than boiled barley. By the time the steward's bell rings from the upper level, the hall is lined with food. The servers, dressed better, thinner, always watching, whisk the trays away. I am left with the clean-up. Bones, blood, crusts. I scrape everything into a slop bucket for the pigs and rinse the platters in cold water that turns red, then brown, then clear again. After the midday meal, there is a short lull. Not rest, there is no true rest, but stillness. I take the chance to walk the courtyard, pretending to sweep. The walls rise high around me, thick and scarred with age. The guards pace above, peering outward. Below, chickens peck the dust. A smith works in the far corner, hammering something bright and hot. Sparks leap from the anvil, disappearing before they touch the ground. I glance at the well. It's one of the few quiet places here. The bucket creaks as I lower it, rope rubbing against the worn wood. The water is clear and cold. I take a sip and splash some on my face. For a moment, I imagine I'm elsewhere, far from here, far from duty. But then the bell rings again. Back to the kitchens, back to the tasks that never end. Afternoon light filters into the scullery as I sort herbs, cleaning the dirt from each leaf. My hands are stained green and brown. I pick out the spoiled ones, save the best for the stew that will simmer through the evening. Later I'm sent to help in the laundry, buckets of boiling water, heavy linens, stiff brushes. The washerwoman curses at me when I ring too slowly. She has worked here longer than anyone, her back bent like a question mark. Her hands are red and raw, but move with the precision of habit. We scrub tunics and sheets, cloaks and trousers, even the Lord's underthings, coarse linen, soft with use. We hang them on ropes strung high in the inner yard. The wind carries the scent of soap and smoke together. Evening creeps in. The light turns golden, then pink, then soft grey. Candles are lit by the upper servants, torches by the guards. The castle begins to exhale. You can feel it in the stone. I'm called again, this time to help the stable boys. The horses must be fed, oats and hay, clean water in troughs. I shovel waste into a pit outside, the scent strong enough to make my eyes water. The horses, though, are beautiful. Massive creatures with deep, dark eyes. One nudges my shoulder as I pass. I stop to stroke its nose. For a moment, it feels like affection. Dinner for the servants is quiet. No one talks much. We eat fast. Pottage, always pottage, sometimes salted pork, a piece of hard cheese if we're lucky. I dip my bread into the broth and chew slowly. Each bite softens the tension in my jaw, but only a little. Then we're back at it again. The nobles dine later, long into the evening. Laughter rises from the great hall. Music sometimes, when the minstrel is in favour. I listen from the corridor as I polish goblets and stack platters. Their lives seem like fantasy, velvet, wine and dancing. I once caught a glimpse of the lady of the castle during a feast. Her dress shimmered like moonlight, and her voice was soft and strange, like a song I couldn't quite understand. She walked past me without seeing me, not out of cruelty, just as though I wasn't there. After the feast, I help carry away what's left. Bones, crumbs, spilled wine. I mop the floor on hands and knees. The rushes crunch beneath my weight, soaked through with drink and grease. I gather them in a sack to be thrown into the pig pit. The kitchens go quiet. The fires burn low, but the night is only beginning. The sun has long since dipped behind the tree line. What little light remains fades from the courtyard walls like breath on a mirror. Now comes the part of the day I dread the most, not for the labour, but for the stillness. In the daylight, my tasks keep me moving, occupied. At night, there is time to think. And thought in this place is not always a friend. The castle quiets slowly, not all at once. First the kitchens dim, then the great hall empties of sound. Then the clinking of goblets fades to silence. The nobles retire to their chambers. Their laughter softens, muffled behind wooden doors and heavy tapestries. Their day is done. Mine is not. I take a broom and begin sweeping the corridor outside the hall. Dust and crumbs and bits of rush all gathered into neat piles. I do not whistle. I do not hum. The steward dislikes unnecessary noise at night. The torches hiss low on the walls, casting long shadows that flicker and stretch like spirits reaching toward me. In truth, this place feels older at night. The stones seem more ancient, the silence more sacred. I sometimes wonder what stories they could tell if they had voices, how many secrets they hold, how many whispers they've heard in the dead of night. There's a creak from above, a floorboard, a door closes, distant footsteps. I continue sweeping. Once the corridor is clean, I move through the side chambers, straightening chairs, wiping down tables, ensuring everything is as it should be come morning. The nobles may not notice a crooked goblet, but the steward does, and he punishes small things more severely than large ones. Next, I carry fresh water to the solar and the ladies' chamber. The bucket sloshes as I walk. My arms ache, but I keep my pace even. At the top of the narrow spiral staircase, I pause. The air here smells faintly of lavender and wax, a softer world than the one I live in. I knock gently 3 times, then leave the jug on the floor outside her door. I never see her at night, only her maid, who opens the door just enough to retrieve the water, never saying a word. Back downstairs, I check the kitchen fires. One is left burning low through the night, banked with ash to preserve the coals until morning. I crouch beside it, watching the embers glow. The heat is comforting, and for a few quiet moments, I let myself feel something close to peace. But there is more to do. The chamber pots must be emptied, some already full, some worse. I carry them, one by one, through the back corridor to the latrine shaft, a narrow chute carved into the castle wall that empties into the pit below. The stench is overpowering. I gag quietly, careful not to make a sound. This is one of the lowest tasks. No one speaks of it, but everyone dreads it. Once done, I wash my hands with sand and water from the basin. It never fully removes the smell. Outside, the moon has risen, a pale, silent guardian in the night sky. It casts a silver light over the stones, over the stables, over the well. Most of the castle sleeps now. A few guards still patrol the walls, but even they move more slowly, their conversations quieter. The steward appears then as if from the shadows. His cloak is heavy, fur-lined. He smells of wine and ink. "You'll watch the lower gate tonight," he says, "until the bell." I nod. There's no point arguing. The lower gate rarely sees traffic after dark, but it must be watched nonetheless. I take a torch and a stool and settle beside it. The flame dances in the breeze, sending tiny sparks up into the night. The hours pass slowly. I hear the owls in the trees, the soft hoot of their calls. Occasionally, a fox cries from the woods beyond the wall, a sharp, eerie sound. Once I think I see movement on the path, but it's only a deer, lit briefly by moonlight before vanishing into the underbrush. The castle behind me is a sleeping beast. Stone ribs, timber veins, a heart that beats in silence. I know its every breath, every creak. It is the only home I have known. Midnight draws near. My eyes grow heavy, but I force them open. The stool is hard, the torch low. I stand and pace a little, slapping my cheeks to stay awake. I think of nothing in particular, just shadows and shapes and the way the stars look when no one else is watching. Finally, the bell rings from the tower above. Soft, slow, a single chime. Midnight. My watch is over. I extinguish the torch and return it to the rack. My legs are sore, my arms limp, but the work is done, for now. I creep quietly back to the servants' quarters. The others are already asleep, bodies curled like question marks under thin blankets. I lie down in my corner, pull the blanket over my shoulders, and exhale deeply. The stone beneath me is still cold. My hands still smell faintly of ash and garlic and horses. But for a moment, in the quiet dark, I feel still, alive, a part of something ancient and vast. Tomorrow it will begin again. The same fire, the same broom, the same weight of things, unseen. But for now, I sleep. The castle is asleep, truly asleep. Not the half-sleep of a quiet evening or a resting hall, but the deep stillness of the final hours before dawn, when even the walls seem to exhale and time itself slows. I lie on my side, blanket pulled up beneath my chin, staring into the darkness of the servants' quarters. The hearth here has long since cooled. The others around me breathe slow and steady. A foot twitches. Someone murmurs something in their sleep. Then silence again. But my eyes remain open. Even after the longest days, sleep does not always come easily. My body is tired, sore knees, aching hands, but my mind drifts, unwilling to fully let go. I listen. A gentle drip of water from a leaking basin, the distant clatter of hooves, perhaps a late rider arriving or a dream echo of something past. Wind tugs gently at the shutters, whispering through cracks in the stone. I think of my mother. She served too, though in a smaller house, far to the south. I barely remember her face, just her hands, always moving, always worn. I wonder if she felt this same aching quiet, these same hours where the work was done, but the weight still lingered. Eventually, exhaustion takes me. I do not remember closing my eyes, only waking again to the sound of footsteps. A muffled voice in the hall. A door creaks open. Someone's already moving. The steward's assistant, perhaps, or the upper maid preparing the ladies' chamber. Their day begins before ours. Quiet and deliberate. I rise slowly, careful not to wake the others. My blanket folds into a neat square. My tunic, already stiff with yesterday's sweat, is pulled over my head. My boots thump softly as I push them on. Outside the kitchen door, the cold hits like a slap. The stars are still out, though fading. The sky is dark navy, not black. A sliver of silver on the horizon hints at what's coming. The birds know it too, just beginning their soft morning calls. I cross the courtyard in silence. The dew is thick, glittering faintly on the grass and stone. I breathe in, and the air is sharp with the scent of smoke and frost and earth. I make for the woodpile first. Arms full, I return to the main hearth and kneel before it. It always begins this way. I strike the flint, once, twice, and then again. Sparks fly, fade. Again, a single ember catches in the dry moss. I blow gently. The fire breathes. It wakes, just as I do. Soon the cook will arrive, then the steward, then the rest. The cycle repeats. There is something comforting in that. The fire crackles softly now, casting its warm glow on the stone. My shadow dances behind me, long and stretched. Another day begins.